Have you ever stopped to wonder why a single look can feel magnetic, like it's pulling at something deep within your chest? Why a faint smile can send a flood of thoughts through your mind? Or why certain fantasies return again and again, even when you never consciously invited them? Your sexual desire is not random. It isn't a flaw to be suppressed or a hunger to be endlessly indulged. It's a coded transmission from the deepest strata of your unconscious. And if you learn to interpret it, it becomes more than temptation. It becomes guidance. Stay with me. And you won't just gain abstract ideas. You'll gain a practice. You'll learn to translate desire into insight, to turn attraction into integration, and to discover what your longing has been trying to tell you all along. Let's start with a shift that changes everything. Desire is symbolic. On the surface, it reaches toward faces, voices, gestures, and physical forms. But beneath that surface, it reaches toward meanings. Your psyche doesn't speak in words. It speaks in symbols, images, and energy. Desire is one of its most potent dialects. When it rises, it's not simply saying, I want that person, but also, I want to become something through this attraction. When you rush to satisfy the impulse, the message dissolves with the pleasure. When you hold the energy long enough to decode it, you access hidden information about your shadow, your unlived potential, and your next step in inner evolution. This evolution, what some psychologists call the process of individuation, is the shift from living according to your mask to living according to your essence. You have a persona, the adaptive self that wins approval, keeps the peace, and fits the social pattern. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. The problem begins when you believe that's all you are. Desire often arrives when your deeper nature knocks against the armor of that persona. You think you're drawn to someone outside of you, but the spark is coming from what's trying to awaken within. That's why certain attractions feel destined. They activate an archetype, one of those primordial patterns that existed long before your personal story began. When an archetype lights up, it carries the force of fate. And if you don't recognize what's moving inside you, you mistake the other person as the source rather than the mirror. There's another dimension to uncover projection. Within you live internal images of the ideal masculine and feminine, not as cultural cliches, but as living energies. These inner figures are not mere fantasies, they're pathways to psychological wholeness. When they remain unconscious, you cast them onto another person and chase them in the external world. The intensity of desire often marks the moment when one of these inner figures, an image of wisdom, beauty, courage, passion, or sovereignty steps forward. You glimpse it in someone else, but it actually belongs to your psyche. If you try to possess the person instead of integrating the quality, you remain dependent on them as the carrier of what you've disowned. But if you begin the practice of reclaiming that projection, something changes. You grow less desperate, more centered, and paradoxically more magnetic, because you're no longer asking another to hold what has always been your own. So, how do you reclaim a projection? It begins with awareness, patience, and the courage to meet yourself through the mirror of your desire. Begin with the sensation itself. Instead of escaping into fantasy or rushing toward relief, take a breath and observe the exact landscape of the pull. Where does it live inside your body? If it had a color, a temperature, or a texture, how would you describe it? What fragments of memory shimmer behind it? Set a timer for 3 minutes and commit to doing nothing but feeling. The mind will try to bargain. This is useless. Just call them, or you're overthinking. That voice is the persona, your social mask, fighting for control. Stay with the tension. Often, by the second or third minute, an image will appear. A symbol, a word, a scene, or a face that has nothing to do with the person you desire. That is your first clue. Your desire has started speaking its own language. From here, move into what Jung once called active imagination, but stripped of ritual or mysticism. All you need is honesty. Close your eyes and invite the desire to take on a form. If it were a character, what would it look and sound like? Ask it directly. What do you want from me? Not from my body, but for my growth. Then listen without filtering. You might hear words like courage, play, depth, honesty, tenderness, strength, or freedom. These are not vague virtues. They are the qualities your psyche is currently starving for. Your erotic energy is trying to bring them to your attention in a way that you cannot ignore. If you continue to treat desire as a simple physical urge, you will keep missing the deeper lesson. But if you treat it as a teacher, it becomes the most honest curriculum your inner life can offer. Now we meet the shadow. The shadow is not evil. It is simply the part of you that you've rejected or denied. It holds both your buried strengths and your hidden wounds. Sexual desire often leads directly to the shadow's door because it touches the places you claim to have outgrown. Ask yourself, What part of this attraction threatens the identity I've built? If you pride yourself on being composed, desire may confront you with your untamed nature. If you see yourself as endlessly generous, it may demand that you acknowledge your own needs. If you define yourself as logical, it might drag you into mystery. That friction is not a mistake. It's an invitation. What feels unbearable in your attraction, the intensity, the confusion, the vulnerability, the danger corresponds precisely to the parts of yourself waiting to be integrated. Here lies a paradox. Your attractions are shaped less by personal taste and more by your emotional complexes. A complex is a knot of memory, emotion, and defense built around a theme: abandonment, control, inadequacy, superiority, rescue, invisibility, or domination. When a complex is triggered, it seizes your energy and begins narrating your story for you. Desire then turns compulsive. You don't choose the feeling, it chooses you. To work with a complex, don't condemn it, identify it. Give it a name. Observe its favorite script. Notice how it takes over your body, the tightening in your stomach, the racing in your chest, the tunnel vision that excludes reason, and how it rewrites reality to prove its own prophecy. The moment you can say, a complex is speaking, you create a small but sacred distance. Within that space, the energy of desire transforms from compulsion into consciousness, from craving into clarity. In that shift, you begin to see that desire is not the enemy of your peace. It is the doorway to your wholeness. Let us now explore the principle of the tension of opposites. The fundamental law behind genuine transformation. Real change doesn't happen by destroying one side of a polarity and glorifying the other. It happens by holding the charge between them long enough for something entirely new to emerge. This is the essence of psychological alchemy. Desire provides the heat required for this alchemical process. On one end of the spectrum lies instinct, passion, hunger, and longing. On the other end lies consciousness, awareness, boundaries, truth, and accountability. If you collapse into indulgence, you merely replay an old pattern. If you collapse into repression, you become rigid and lifeless. But when you allow yourself to feel fully without acting unconsciously, something remarkable begins to happen. The psyche reorganizes itself. A new symbol arises that reconciles the two extremes. Courage softened by tenderness, intimacy grounded in responsibility, strength infused with receptivity, devotion that doesn't erase individuality. This emerging third thing is always more humane, integrated, and complete than the original conflict that birthed it. Here enters a vital principle: sublimation. This is not moralistic suppression, but intelligent redirection. Sexual energy is a form of generalized psychic energy. It seeks expression and movement. If you deny it entirely, it stagnates. If you waste it on quick gratification, it disperses. Sublimation invites you to give it meaningful channels. Build a vessel, a daily practice, an artistic pursuit, a mindful ritual, or a dialogue with your inner world through which this energy can ascend. To rise does not mean abandoning the body. It means filling the body with more consciousness. When you write honestly, create fearlessly, move gracefully, speak truthfully, or dedicate yourself to service, you are not running from desire, you are fulfilling it. The same current that once chased illusions becomes illumination itself. It begins to read your life, showing you what is real and what was projection all along. Now, let's interpret specific signals that desire uses to communicate. First, intensity. When an attraction strikes like lightning, sudden, overwhelming, and consuming, it often signals the awakening of an archetype. Ask yourself, what myth is being reactivated here? Is it the rescuer and the rescued? The ruler and the devotee? The muse and the creator? The pursuer and the elusive? The healer and the broken? The rebel and the authority? Do not condemn it, simply identify it. The moment you name the myth, you reduce its power to possess you. Instead of reenacting the story, you can distill its wisdom. Second, repetition. When you keep finding yourself drawn to the same pattern wearing different faces, it means a psychological complex is seeking completion. It will keep resurfacing until you choose to feed it consciousness instead of repetition. Third, paradox. When you feel both pulled in and pushed away, fascinated yet afraid, you are approaching an inner threshold. Something in you senses that crossing it would dismantle an old identity. Respect the fear, but don't submit to it. Ask the fear, what are you trying to protect? What would you need to feel safe if I grow beyond this? Finally, turn to your dreams. They are the nightly workshop of your psyche. Sexual imagery in dreams is rarely literal. It speaks of union, renewal, creativity, and the merging of opposites. Pay attention to the emotional atmosphere: joy, guilt, wonder, shame, serenity, or urgency. Observe the setting: a border, a temple, a classroom, a forest, or a place in decay. Notice the obstacle, a locked door, a missing key, a sudden interruption. Each detail reveals which part of you seeks union and which part resists. Upon waking, record the dream before you move. Give it a title, as if naming a short story. Then ask, what in my waking life carries this same emotional tone? What choice, conversation, or creative act could honor what this dream is asking me to live? When you align even one small conscious action with the dream's symbolic message, you signal to the unconscious that you are listening, and in return, it deepens the dialogue, offering more symbols, more meaning, and more guidance toward wholeness. Let us now return to the body, the ground, where everything we've discussed takes form. The nervous system is the stage on which the entire drama of desire unfolds. If your baseline state is dysregulated, constantly tense, collapsed, or scattered, then desire will register as either a crisis or a sedative. Both interpretations are distortions. To hear the true message, you must restore what psychologists call regulation, the balanced middle ground between hyperarousal and shutdown. Try this simple reset when desire surges. Exhale longer than you inhale, 5 times. Feel the weight of your feet and the back of your legs. Gently press your tongue to the roof of your mouth. Soften your gaze and widen your peripheral vision. Silently name 5 points of stability in the space around you. The whole exercise takes less than a minute, yet it shifts you from being possessed by emotion to being present with it. Once the body is steady, the dialogue with desire becomes honest because your system no longer mistakes it for danger. Boundaries, contrary to popular belief, are not the enemy of passion. They are what make it sustainable. A boundary is not a wall. It's a shape that protects meaning. Without shape, desire becomes noise. With it, desire becomes music. Each time attraction arises, ask yourself 3 grounding questions. What needs protection? What do I want to nurture? And what must I refuse? Protect your energy, your values, and your time. Cultivate exchanges that move toward authenticity rather than performance. Refuse situations that demand you betray your integrity or manipulate another's vulnerability. When these boundaries are clear, desire doesn't diminish. It refines. The energy that once leaked into fantasy or anxiety returns as creativity and focus. Now, let's explore transference, not as a clinical term, but as a lived human experience. When desire feels overwhelming, you may actually be viewing someone through the lens of an earlier emotional wound. The psyche seeks closure by projecting unfinished needs from the past onto the present. If you find yourself gripped by irrational attachment, panic at distance, or euphoric certainty after minor interactions, pause and ask, who am I really trying to reach through this person? What reassurance am I still chasing? What promise do I secretly wish someone would finally keep with me? Don't judge this longing, tend to it. Write that promise down and begin to keep it for yourself through deliberate, small actions. When you do, you reclaim your inner authority and you stop expecting someone else to complete the story your past left unfinished. Finally, there is the ancient principle of enantiodromia, the tendency of everything to turn into its opposite over time. The psyche has its own balancing mechanism. If you've spent years suppressing desire, life will flood you with impulses until you learn to include them consciously. If you've lived in endless indulgence, you will eventually face the emptiness that demands meaning. Don't fear these oscillations, interpret them. Restraint teaches you the depth of your hunger. Indulgence teaches you the limits of satisfaction. The goal is not to remain at one extreme, but to cultivate a centered awareness that can hold both appetite and wisdom without collapsing into either. In that center, desire stops being a storm and becomes a current that carries you toward integration. Here is a practical framework for decoding desire the moment it arises. Think of it as having 3 layers: sensation, story, and symbol. Sensation: what is actually happening inside your body? Where is the feeling located? What is its pressure, rhythm, temperature, and movement? Story: what narrative immediately attaches to that sensation? If this happens, I'll finally be chosen. If I miss this, I'll be alone forever. This is dangerous. I must control it. Symbol: what image or message begins to form if you neither obey nor suppress the story? Spend about 60 seconds on each layer without skipping. You'll often find that the symbol contradicts the story. The body speaks in heat and movement. The mind speaks in negotiations. The soul speaks in direction. Your task isn't to judge or silence any of them, but to listen to all 3 until a 4th, wiser voice, the integrated self, can make the decision. To strengthen this awareness, establish morning and evening rituals. In the morning, before looking at your phone, open your journal and ask yourself 2 questions. What am I unconsciously chasing today? What quality could I embody instead of chasing? If you write validation, choose truth. If you write control, choose trust. If you write excitement, choose meaning. Circle the word and design one small action that proves it before noon. In the evening, record the 3 strongest pulls you felt that day toward a person, a thought, an image, a memory, or a fantasy. For each, write down the quality you were really seeking: safety, freedom, novelty, intensity, intimacy, recognition, or sovereignty. Then write one way you can nurture that quality tomorrow without relying on someone else to provide it. This daily practice slowly rewires desire from compulsion into conversation. Pay attention to the fantasies that keep recurring. They aren't shameful glitches. They are encrypted messages. Instead of suppressing or indulging them, learn to interview them. Ask, what role do I play in this scene? Pursuer, pursued, rescuer, rescued, ruler, subject, seen, unseen. What emotion saturates it? Adoration, danger, forgiveness, control, relief, revelation. What setting repeats hidden rooms? Public exposure, distant places, rituals, reunions, or confessions. Translate each element into a human need. Maybe the public setting reflects your desire to stop concealing your truth. Maybe the danger reflects a life that has grown too safe and predictable. Maybe the rescue reflects a longing for self-strength. When you meet the underlying need directly, the fantasy loosens its hold. It evolves. It becomes more layered, more real, and more aligned with your authentic values. Let's talk about values, not as rules, but as the natural architecture of your soul in motion. When your desire and your values cooperate, you feel clear, grounded, alive, and capable of depth. When they conflict, you feel split, momentarily euphoric, then empty. Try a simple 2-column reflection. On the left, list the signals of aligned desire: grounded excitement, relaxed breath, open curiosity, and a sense of expanded time. On the right, list the signals of misaligned desire: tunnel vision, inner bargaining, guilt before acting, the urge to hide, or the craving for reassurance instead of truth. Keep this list where you can see it. When attraction flares, compare the feeling against your inventory. Don't wait for theories or moral debates. Let your body's honesty become your compass. It already knows when your desire is clean and when it's asking to evolve. ChatGPT.noi, creativity and eros are not separate energies. They are 2 expressions of the same current. Creativity is simply eros with endurance, with a longer attention span. When your romantic life feels either dull or chaotic, look first at your creative life. Are you giving form to the ideas that visit you? Do you follow them to completion or abandon them halfway? Do you risk letting your real voice be heard? When your creative fire goes unfed, your desire will try to resolve its hunger entirely through relationships. But when that fire is nourished through creation, expression, or honest communication, your desire becomes generous within relationships instead of desperate for them. You don't need to be an artist to live this way. You simply need a practice that asks you to make the invisible visible every day. An idea turned into language, an intention translated into structure, a vision shaped into a plan, a promise given form as a boundary, a truth spoken aloud in conversation. Each time you do this, you enact the same transformation that desire is always asking of you to become what you seek. Now, let us look at 2 energies that often separate power and tenderness. Many people channel eros to either dominate or disappear. Power without tenderness becomes hard and defensive. Tenderness without power becomes draining and fragile. Your pattern of desire will reveal which direction you lean. If you tend to impress, perform, or control, practice softening, slowing your pace, letting silence breathe, asking instead of assuming. If you tend to appease, adapt, or overgive, practice strengthening, state your needs cleanly, speak your truth without apology, and allow others to feel disappointment without rescuing them from it. When power and tenderness can share the same nervous system, desire becomes stable, trustworthy, and magnetic. It no longer manipulates, it invites. This union between power and tenderness mirrors the deeper union sought by both spirituality and sexuality. True union does not erase differences. It allows them to meet within an awareness vast enough to hold both. When you approach sexual energy with reverence, it teaches you how to stay conscious at the edge, where instinct meets insight, matter meets meaning, self meets other. Living at that edge brings texture to existence. You stop chasing endless highs and start cultivating enduring depth. Depth doesn't announce itself. It is quiet, grounded, and real. It's the kind of joy you don't need to photograph to prove you felt it. Now, make an inner vow. Not one meant to impress others, but to strengthen your inner backbone. Say it softly or aloud. I will not use my desire to abandon myself. I will not use my desire to control another. I will treat my desire as a messenger of my becoming. This vow is not confinement, it's a home. And when you inevitably break it, as all humans do, don't collapse into shame. Return, repair, reflect, refine. Each return thickens integrity. Each repair deepens compassion. Each reflection sharpens perception. Over time, people will feel it without you having to say a word. Your desire won't beg to be filled. It will build from within. You might ask, but how do I know if an attraction is real? Reverse the question. What truth about myself does this attraction demand? If it requires you to lie about your needs, shrink your values, or abandon your boundaries, then it's asking you to fund your longing with self-betrayal. But if it calls you to be more honest, more present, more courageous, more discerning, or more alive, then it's asking you to fund your longing with growth. One path is thrilling but hollow. The other is demanding but meaningful. Your body already knows the difference if you keep listening. You'll recognize it sooner every time. Here is a final practice, the 7-day attention fast. For 1 week, refrain from compulsively checking the person, platform, or situation that keeps your nervous system tethered. Not because looking is wrong, but because your attention is sacred. Redirect that saved energy each day into 3 deliberate acts, one of creation, one of truth-telling, and one of beauty. Creation could be finishing a paragraph, organizing a plan, or reclaiming a neglected space. Truth-telling could be declining what you don't want, confessing what you do, or acknowledging a fear you've been hiding. Beauty could be arranging your environment with care, reading something that nourishes your mind, or walking outside without distractions until the world touches your senses again. At the end of 7 days, revisit your desire. It will sound different. It will be quieter, steadier, and more articulate. It will no longer speak in fragments, but in complete sentences. As you live in this way, the face of desire changes. It stops dragging you through obsession and begins to converse with you. It stops promising rescue and starts revealing meaning. You will still feel shaken, moved, undone at times. That's part of being alive. But you won't be powerless inside the wave anymore. You'll have an oar, and with it, a subtle kind of authority. It whispers, I'm not here to extract my identity from anyone. I'm here to bring my whole self to the meeting point and to learn what this encounter reveals about the next step in my becoming. Notice what's happening right now as you absorb these words. Maybe your breath has slowed. Maybe an image is surfacing the doorway you haven't yet walked through. The conversation you keep postponing. The creative risk you keep negotiating against. That image is your next assignment. Desire has brought you to the threshold. Willingness will carry you across. And if you stay present long enough to feel the tremor of that crossing in your chest, you will recognize the signature that always appears when you choose the path of integration. The unmistakable sense that something within you has finally stopped waiting and has begun to live.